My name is Lily Harrington. Today, I am facing one of the most frightening days of my life. My mother's funeral. Everyone in the hall is dressed in black, whispering, sneaking glances at each other. People's eyes are not on me, but on my sister Daphne. As always, she manages to draw attention. Her black dress fits her perfectly, and her pearl necklace glimmers under the light. Even at a funeral, the spotlight is on her. I sit in the front row, clutching tightly an old worn chest with my hands. This chest, left to me as my mother's final wish, is almost a source of shame in the eyes of the crowd. It's as if it's proof that I didn't inherit the real treasure. Whenever tears threaten to fall from my eyes, I notice people in the side rows looking at me with pity. At that moment, my shame only grows. One of our cousins near Daphne whispers softly, but loud enough for me to hear, "Poor Lily. She stayed with her mother all these years, and this chest is all she got." Another laughs and adds, "Look at Daphne. She built a career in the city, and now all the valuable things will go to her." That's Lily's fate. The words stab my heart like a fine knife. Even when my mother was alive, it was always like this. No matter what I did or how hard I worked, I was always in Daphne's shadow. My achievements went unnoticed, while her smallest step was applauded. While I studied at university, I lived in the same house, cared for my mother, and spent my free time by her side. Daphne, however, chased a career in another city, visited once or twice a year, and yet was always the successful child. Even at the funeral, this contrast was glaring. Daphne gathered her friends in a corner, speaking beautifully about our mother, as if she had been by her side for years. People looked at her with admiration, while I quietly cried in the front row. All attention, respect, and praise went to her. I was left with only pity and condescending looks. Then I hear Daphne lean toward me and whisper mockingly, "I hope that chest holds a few nice memories for you, Lily, because the real inheritance will be mine." Her voice is so sharp that my eyes fill with tears. As if my mother's absence wasn't heavy enough, her words make me feel even smaller. Maybe not everyone is looking at me in the room, but I imagine the judgment in their eyes. Poor girl. She devoted her life to her mother, and all she got was an old box. I press my fingers harder against the edge of the chest. The wood digs into my hands, but I don't let go. This chest is not the only thing my mother left me. I remember her final words looking into my eyes. "Lily, this chest is entrusted to you. What's inside is far more valuable than it seems. Don't ever let anyone belittle you with a lump in my throat." I question the meaning of the task my mother entrusted to me. As people's laughter rings in my ears, and as Daphne's triumphant gaze hovers over me, the chest feels like a burden too heavy to bear. But deep inside, something whispers, this story isn't over. My mother's trust will not be overshadowed by Daphne's scorn. Perhaps the chest holds a secret that no one knows yet, and I, Lily, who have remained silent all my life, might finally be at the center of my own story. The first morning after the funeral, the house was filled with silence. The kitchen, where I used to hear my mother's voice, was now empty. The rooms were cold. On the walls, there were framed photos of my mother in her youth, her smile still lively, but there was no one to hug anymore. Inside me, an unspeakable emptiness grew. The chest sat in the corner of my room, as if breathing, constantly reminding me of its presence. Whenever my eyes fell upon it, my heart raced. Not knowing what's inside gave me both fear and hope. My mother's final words echoed in my ears. What's inside is far more valuable than it seems. But I didn't have the courage to open it yet. Maybe I was scared. What if it was empty? What if the only things my mother left were old notebooks, yellowed photos, or a few letters? People's mocking words would prove right, and I'd be diminished again. My sister Daphne, on the other hand, looked strong. Even the day after the funeral, she met people, coordinated with the lawyer, and discussed inheritance sharing. Her short message was still on my phone. "You don't need to come to the meeting. The important things are already mine." Reading those lines, I felt indescribable hurt. I had been by my mother in her last days, counted her breaths. Daphne, however, was after money and possessions. Yet, she was still considered the rightful, strong one in the family. At night, I sat by the chest. I slowly placed my hand on the lid. The texture of the wood felt like a memory from the past against my skin. I tried to lift the lid, but my hands trembled. It was as if my mother was watching me from a corner. I was afraid of betraying her trust, so I didn't open it. Not yet, but I knew the moment was close. The lawyer opened the file and took a deep breath. The silence was almost physically heavy. Everyone waited without breathing. His fingers brushed the papers. Then he looked at Lily for a moment. There was a slight warmth in his eyes, as if he knew what he was about to reveal mattered to Lily. "Your late mother's will," he said slowly and clearly, "will be read aloud to everyone, in order." Daphne leaned forward immediately, her eyes shining. A few family friends glanced at her before looking at Lily, as if they already anticipated the outcome. Lily held the chest tightly in her lap, her hands trembling, heart racing. The chest was no longer just an object, it was the embodiment of all the past, her mother's love and secrets. The lawyer read the first line, "To the grandchild, who has always seen true values and..." The chest was more than just an object. It was the last bond between my mother and me, and in the silence that screamed in that night, all I could think was, what is truly hidden from me? Days had passed since the funeral, yet the grief that had filled the house had not lifted. Each morning, I woke up as if expecting to hear my mother's voice. The sounds of coffee brewing in the kitchen, footsteps in the hallway, were gone. Only a heavy silence remained. But this silence wouldn't last long, because what my mother left behind was about to open the door to a louder reckoning. When the phone rang, my hand shook. The lawyer's voice was familiar, but this time it carried a strange weight beyond formality. "Ms. Lily, you are required to come to my office tomorrow afternoon to read your mother's will." My heart tightened. I knew this moment would come, but I never felt ready. The chest my mother left me seemed to look at me from the corner, breathing its presence. I didn't know what was inside, but it was inevitable that the mystery would be solved along with the will. Still, I feared, what if it's empty? What if Daphne is right and everyone sees me as diminished once again? The next day, on my way to the lawyer's office, my steps felt heavy. The stairs of the building seemed endless. As I stepped inside, all eyes turned toward me. Daphne had already arrived, looking polished, as if attending a gala. Black dress, flashy brooch, meticulously styled updo. Even her designer bag on the table seemed like a symbol of victory. With her were our cousins and a few family friends. Seeing their expressions, I understood. They were here not to mourn, but to witness the division of inheritance. As I entered, Daphne's lips curved into a mocking smile. She fixed her eyes on me and adjusted her voice so everyone could hear. "Look who's here." Lily finally graced us with her presence. I wonder if she brought her chest. The atmosphere in the room shifted. No laughter, but those contemptuous smirks at the corners of their lips hurt more than any laughter could. A piece of ice grew in me. No matter how quietly I sat, in their eyes I was already lacking. I was already poor Lily. The lawyer sat at the head of the table, adjusting the papers before him. He looked at me over his glasses, his expression neutral, but I felt even he was overshadowed by Daphne's confident demeanor. The strong one was clear. Daphne leaned back in her chair, tapping the table lightly with her fingertips, as if keeping rhythm to her own victory. Her gaze dominated everyone. My hands were clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. The tension inside me was so strong that even breathing was hard. The lawyer cleared his throat and opened the file. The room went silent. The ticking of distant clocks, the scratch of the pen, even the rustle of paper sounded louder in the silence. I shifted my eyes toward Daphne as the lawyer began, her head held high, her eyes sharp with confidence, as if she already knew every line of the will and was celebrating her victory. I remembered my mother's final words. "What's inside is far more valuable than it seems." My heart tightened again. Then I realized this will wouldn't just tell us who inherits what, It would reveal years of silence, unseen efforts, and the secrets my mother had kept from me. Daphne shone like a statue in the spotlight. I sat in the shadows, feeling the weight of the chest my mother left me. But deep inside, a small feeling arose. Maybe this time, everything would be different. Preserved family bonds throughout her life. Daphne smiled, leaning forward. Our cousins whispered, "See? Nothing will go to Lily." But Lily's heart kept racing. Then the lawyer paused, holding up the chest, adding, "Ms. Lily, your mother did not leave you an inheritance as it seems. The contents of this chest are a surprise, combined from years of accumulation." Daphne's smile froze. Everyone around her went silent. The balance of power in the room began to shift. Lily, with trembling hands, opened the chest. She noticed each card had old handwritten notes and symbols. Each card seemed to contain a recipe, but also had official stamps and documents. The lawyer explained, heavy and calm, "Each recipe card represents the ownership of different properties your mother held. Not only recipes, but also deeds and property documents are included. Each card is prepared in your name and notarized." Lily's breath caught, her eyes filled with tears. This chest made visible the neglect, sacrifices, and love her mother had for her. Daphne drew back her head. Her face went pale. Her lips trembled. She looked incredulous, then screamed angrily, "This is impossible. Why didn't Mom tell me? I deserved this." The lawyer, remaining calm, looked at Daphne. "Your late mother observed which grandchild understood true values over the years. The contents of the chest were designed to reward sacrifice, devotion, and character. Ms. Lily, your care and loyalty are the true values your mother appreciated." At that moment, all the pain, humiliation, and anxiety inside Lily turned into a silent sense of victory. The chest was no longer just an object. It became the turning point of her life. Her mother's hints and the mystery of the chest had completely transformed her life. Daphne struggled to contain her surprise and anger. Everyone else was silent. The expected inheritance outcome had completely reversed in favor of Lily. The room was filled with Lily's quiet triumph. The shadows of the past were now contained within the chest, and Lily's duty was to preserve this inheritance and her mother's values. A few days after the will was read, Lily still remembered the tense silence and Daphne's shocked expression. The weight of that moment felt stamped in time. Returning home, holding the chest had never felt so meaningful. It was no longer just a box. It held her mother's love, sacrifices, and years of hidden wisdom. Lily placed the chest on the kitchen table, her heart racing. She opened it with trembling hands, examining each card. Each card had her mother's handwriting, sketches, and notes. At first glance, they looked like old recipes, but the stamps and seals revealed years of effort, sacrifice, and her mother's trust in her. Even after Daphne returned to the city, the echo of events was felt in Lily's life. Her sister's pride and arrogance were publicly diminished. Lily quietly continued her life, at peace with her mother's values and the rewards of her own sacrifices. This quiet victory was the reward for years of suppressed pain and injustice. As days passed, Lily's life began to change. The financial security provided by the chest gave her freedom in her social service work. She could now help people, start volunteer projects, and pursue her dreams without delay. Most importantly, she now deeply felt her own value and her mother's trust. Every Sunday, cooking using her mother's recipes, she nourished not only her body, but also her soul. The chest became a tangible connection to the past, symbolizing sacrifice and love. Daphne's social echoes no longer mattered. What mattered was Lily's quiet, profound, and meaningful victory. One evening, while preparing her mother's favorite recipe, Lily smiled. The chest was beside her, each card reminding her of her past and her mother's love. Daphne's arrogance, city gossip, now just shadows of the past. Lily understood that the greatest inheritance is not material gain, but a life shaped by one's choices, sacrifices, and love. The chest was no longer a simple box. It symbolized her mother's life lesson, love, and silent victory. Lily realized that true power lies not in show, wealth, or others' eyes, but in preserving love, sacrifice, and family bonds. This quiet victory marked a turning point in her life, rewarding the bitterness of the past with sweetness and allowing her to look